Monsieur le directeur exécutif de l'ONUSIDA, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, honorables membres du conseil d'administration, je suis profondément honoré de prendre la parole devant cette auguste assemblée et vous me permettrez de saluer et remercier mon frère Michel Sidibé qui m'associe à ce conseil d'administration en tant qu'invité. Ne soyez pas choqués que je parle de frères, étant entendu qu'une des particularités des pays africains, c'est que lorsque nous partageons une même frontière, nous sommes automatiquement des frères. Ensuite, il me plaît de vous adresser les salutations de son Excellence, M. Alassane Ouattara, président de la République de Côte d'Ivoire, président en exercice.
And he is the chair of the ECOWAS as well. 2 years before the end of 2015, we remember that our common responsibility to end AIDS is still fully committed. The African Union, in celebrating at the beginning of December, as the whole world did, the Global Day Against AIDS, brought together the whole continent to work together with a strong slogan, zero objective, and it is the responsibility of each and every one of us. Heads of African states through the African Union set out a roadmap which makes them more than ever aware of their role in reversing the current trends of the epidemic. At the level of the health ministers of the Economic Community of West Africa, which I am honored to chair, HRV is on our agenda, and our country's joint efforts are set towards setting a national strategic plan for all the countries from 2012 to 2016 for our community. I'm saying 2012 to 2016, in order to have universal access for treatment to people living with HIV/AIDS in our region. The ministers of health at the meeting held in April in Cape Verde carried out a sub-regional evaluation, and the heads of our countries, Michel's and mine, looked at the security issues for HIV antiretroviral drugs. And this will help us fight against the loss of stocks or break-in stocks for these products, and this will help us to work towards our very dear goal of achieving zero HIV. Our country, Côte d'Ivoire, has a mixed epidemic. We have a very difficult situation in 2012 and then after 2002 and then after 2010. We have managed to reduce the prevalence rate from 4.7 in 2005. Following new surveys in 2012, it was reduced to 3.7. We've gained 1 percentage point, which is a great deal for a country which is emerging from crisis. Unfortunately, the feminization of the epidemic is persistent. We have a 4.6% rate for women and 2.7% for men. And there are certain key populations, in particular workers in the sex industry, and 18% in the group of men who have sex with men. This follows a survey from 2012. So in 3 decades of fighting AIDS, we have had some success, but we still have challenges before us. So in terms of the successes, since 2008, antiretroviral drugs have been free. The health districts are covered by testing services, the coverage of treatment and full coverage in accordance to the 2012 surveys, we have 1,046 health centers which offer testing and counseling, which is a coverage rate of around 59%. 869 establishments offer prenatal screening and maternal health coverage, and that is a 49% coverage. So why am I giving you all these figures? This is simply because we have an economist at the head of our country and he adores figures. And this will also allow us to say that we have fallen by so much, but that we have indeed, following serious surveys, been able to reduce certain percentages. And this helps us to better appreciate and understand the fight that we have against HIV, malaria, and TB. HIV/AIDS has a human face through organizations of people living with HIV who have been involved in the processes that we carry out in our country. The fight against AIDS was put into place by the government in order to mobilize resources in order to support the fight against AIDS. So we now have a tax on tobacco since 2009, and this has brought in more than $6 million. The adoption of a draft law on HIV/AIDS in order to fight stigmatization, and this will be looked at by the parliamentarians at the National Assembly. We are trying to carry on, and we have had great successes, but we are determined to continue, led by our president and his government. Yesterday, I arrived this morning, so I can talk about yesterday. Yesterday, on the 16th of December, the president had held the Council of the National Fight Against AIDS, and this involved all representatives of the Republic, prime ministers, and all representatives of the population. Now, this may not seem a great deal, but for us it is very important, because since 2009 we have not held a national council for the fight against AIDS. Since in 2001, heads of state in Africa decided that these should be held in different countries, with financing as an important element of the matter. And I'd like to thank you for your attention there. Now, during this council, the president announced officially his support for the UN AIDS budget of $1 million. When we know the enormous figures that are involved in the fight against AIDS by the Global Fund and UN AIDS, it may seem little, but if every state were to put their stone into the financing and put their contribution in to fight AIDS, malaria, and TB, we would succeed altogether in pushing back these scourges. That's why I call on this august assembly to invest solidly in the various fights, including drugs and all other illnesses, infections, and problems which make our states too sensitive. And we can also use the important involvement of NGOs in the field, because these are the people who are closest to our grassroots communities. So all of us here with Michel Sidibe and UN AIDS, with our aim of zero new infections, zero discrimination, which is still a major issue in our countries. Thank you for listening to me.